This is Dr. Jerome Corsi, and today it's Tuesday. It's August 29th, 2023. Thank you for joining us on The Truth Central. We're doing podcasts every weekday. Our first story is about this judge who is going to be involved with the case of Donald Trump. She's in Georgia, and this judge is a Marxist. It's come out recently. The New York Post was the first to report this, but this judge, Tanya Chutkan, was appointed by Obama. She's a grandchild of Frank Hill. Hill was a communist revolutionary in Jamaica who, along with his brother Ken, was briefly incarcerated by the British governor of Jamaica during World War II due to suspicions of subversive activities. And Frank Hill is the father of Noel Hill, who is Judge Chutkan's mother, according to public records. Frank and his brother Ken were ousted from the People's National Party of Jamaica for their communist beliefs, as reported by Jamaican media outlets. So this is a judge who's a communist. And now we've got communist judges deciding that former presidents have committed crimes by objecting that election results may be fraudulent. This is a disgrace. This should not be happening in the United States of America. This is an intentional destruction of the United States by lawfare, which is a group of radical lawyers that started at Harvard with this critical theory. It was in the era when Obama was a student. And they decided they were going to destroy the Constitution. They have no use for the Constitution. They think they can do better than the Constitution with Marxism, neo-Marxism. And this judge now will not give Donald Trump a break of anything. He won't get a fair trial. She probably won't let his lawyers present a case showing that the election was fraudulent. So this whole thing is just political. This is the kind of thing Hitler did with his show trials, or Stalin. This is the United States of America. This is a disgrace. This should not be happening. These Marxist judges that Obama and before him, Bill Clinton, the left has been packing on with Soros into the judges and the district attorneys that are destroying America. And it is intended to destroy America. That's the goal. Okay, now, what we have to do here is say, basically, as a people, this is nonsense. We're done with this. If we don't have justice in America that is blind, in other words, Biden is sitting in the White House now, obviously having sold the United States to every high bidder, having allowed his son Hunter to run corporations, the Seneca-Rosemont Partnership, which has done things like let China buy companies, including companies that produce stealth technology. Now, isn't that treason? Giving away military secrets to the Chinese by letting them buy them with a company, being paid for it to the White House with the big guy doing meetings. This country has never seen this level of corruption before. This makes Watergate look like a Sunday picnic. Makes Teapot Dome, if anybody remembers it, look like a joke. These people are, and the entire Congress is in on it, spending money and stealing the money. The money we're giving to Ukraine to supply weapons is getting stolen by the oligarchs. I want to know where Zelensky has his dacha, where his resort home is. Is it in Cyprus? They've all got them. They've stolen billions because we're not accounting for the money. Russia is destroying our equipment easily. Russia has turned back this counteroffensive. The war is going to destroy NATO, and the sooner the better. I mean, for that purpose, because NATO is only aiming with these Democrats who are Marxists. I mean, let's get this straight. These are Marxists. I've written 2 books. This Truth About Energy, Global Warming, and Climate Change. They lie. This is the Exposing Climate Lies, the Age of Disinformation. Read it. I think one of the major reasons we are in this situation is people are spending far too much time on the internet. They're not actually reading books. If people don't read books, we're going to lose this country because we're going to lose education. You're going to lose the ability to have actual critical thinking, not Marxist critical thinking, not the Frankfurt School. The second book is just going to be exactly the same. It's in terms of how its content looks. It's the truth about neo-Marxism, cultural Maoism, and anarchy. It's going to be out, looks like, in October now. I got my first copies of it. I'm very pleased with this book. If you read it, you're going to understand how the Democratic Party is a communist party. Actually, it's a Maoist party. It's destroying the culture. That's the second book, and it's substantial. But it's going to show you how they don't care about truth. It's all about narratives. It's all about constructing this reality. They want you to imagine that we're going to go into a world without police. Imagine a world without borders. Imagine a world without God. God just divides people, they say. So we got to get rid of God. This is insanity. When people lose God, what they do is they start shoplifting, they start disobeying the laws, they start releasing the criminals, and they start punishing the people who are telling the truth. That's a major theme of this program today. We are punishing people who are telling the truth. We're after Donald Trump, who wants to save America. The communists are in control of the media. Turn off the television. Start reading books. Turn off Fox. You know, the idea of spending money on Disney, going to Disneyland when all they're doing is promoting woke in the schools. Insanity. Sending kids to public schools, which is going to happen again in September, where they can get taught gender insanity. Why would you do that to your children? It'd be better to homeschool them. Find a private school. Find a church-related school. Get them out of this public education system and do it now. Okay, the second story I want to comment on very quickly, and then, Chris, I'm going to ask you to comment, is one that I'm thinking is I finally think that the momentum has built to the point where Kevin McCarthy, who I consider to be one of the worst in Congress. I have no regard for Kevin McCarthy at all. I think he is completely corrupt. He and Mitch McConnell, the GOP has become worthless. It's become a uniparty. I would say that the GOP that Ronald Reagan was led, the establishment GOP opposed Ronald Reagan just like they opposed Goldwater. And they opposed Trump because they are not pro-America. They are pro-corruption. Mitch McConnell is married to Elaine Chao. She's Chinese. Her family's worth millions in China. The only reason that family in China is allowed to live is because Mitch McConnell does precisely what China wants done. And anybody who doesn't understand that is a fool, because that's how it works in Washington. There's two principles in Washington. Number one, if anybody's talking to you, assume they're lying. Your only question is, why are they lying? What do they want? Second is, how much are they getting paid and who is paying them? Those are the only two questions in Washington. That's what Washington has become about. I'm for moving the entire bureaucracy to Death Valley and give them all the wind and solar they want. That's how they can cool themselves in the summer. And anybody that doesn't want to go gets fired. Civil service, I'm sorry, it's relocated. You've got to go where it's relocated. We'll pay for your relocation. You'll get a nice Quonset hut to live in Death Valley. We're not promised luxury. You're not promised location. Just promised a job. You want it, the job is in Death Valley. We'll just get the entire bureaucracy, which Obama has stacked, and get it out of there. Now, the story I'm covering here is this movement to impeach. I think it's finally getting to a point. This is an article by James Howard Kunstler, and he's showing how the momentum from this Comer's House Oversight Committee, which has assembled all this evidence now, and we're just finding out, it was breaking news this morning about how somehow like 4,500 email aliases were used by Biden when he was vice president. That's what criminals do. These are criminals. Biden and his son are criminals, and they're running the country supposedly. Obama probably always said he wanted to have a front man to be president while he could have the power. Well, Biden appears to be his guy, and that Biden appears to be mentally losing it, and dementia probably is ideal for Obama, except that it's a disgrace for the American people. And I think the American people are going to be entirely, I don't know the Democrats are going to be able to cheat enough to win this next election. Because the American people, I think, are going to be for Donald Trump. They're going to see the corruption. They're going to see our cities going to hell. You see shoplifting and mobs running through the cities. Police afraid to do anything. They'll lose their jobs. They may get indicted for trying to stop a criminal. The country is going into anarchy, and that's what the next book is about. It's about this neo-Marxism, which has now captivated the Democratic Party and universities. It produces cultural Maoism. They attack the culture with the intent to destroy it. This is a conscious attempt to destroy America by a group of intellectuals who know what they're doing. And if you want to read the code of it, you're going to read these books, because these books are explaining to you that these people live in a different intellectual reality than the average American. They're living in a neo-Marxist reality. They're living a cultural Maoist dream, and they want to produce anarchy because all they're capable of doing is destroying. We have to demand an impeachment trial, and if McCarthy doesn't want to do it, then vote against everybody in Congress. Anybody who's running against them, just vote against their opponents. Get rid of the entire Congress. Any incumbent, don't vote for an incumbent. Vote for their replacement, regardless of who they are. Just get rid of these people. Keep getting rid of them and their comfortable positions in Washington until we get some accountability. Accountability, truth, has got to prevail. If it doesn't, we're lost. Chris, any comments?
There's a small faction of those who seek accountability. I will give them some credit. So I wouldn't want to put them in the whole bunch, but there's still a very, very small minority. I'm pretty sure Kevin McCarthy is allowed to be the speaker because there are factions in the media and the Uniparty that allow this to happen. There's no way that somebody like Donalds is going to get in there, or Gates, or maybe they're the Democrats' worst fear, Marjorie Taylor Greene.
Or Jim Jordan, another one.
Jim Jordan would be their real fear, because there's a guy with guts. Marjorie Taylor Greene's funny, and a lot of people, the media portrays her as nuts, and she doesn't help herself a lot when she kind of scatters off. But one thing I really give her credit for was telling Congress and both parties to vote, instead of raising their hands or with the I vote, to do roll calls so they can put their names to every vote they make, and that can be documented. And that actually changed a few votes within the Congress at the time. So at least there are some people holding their colleagues accountable.
We've got to have massive changes in these institutions, and the only way to do it is to clean the people out. The people have stayed there too long. Mitch McConnell's been in Congress too long. He's got too comfortable, too corrupt. You know, he's got his Senate dining room and his Senate limousine and all the other conveniences of being, you know, the speaker, and everybody bows down to him. This guy isn't accountable to anybody. China's paying him. They've got all the money in the world. You know, these people don't work for the people. They work for themselves. It's a racket. And when politics becomes a criminal racket and the criminals prevail, we've lost America. And it's time. Sidney Powell shouldn't be under indictment. The attorney who represented Donald Trump in claiming the 2020 election was fraudulent, she ought to be attorney general.
Here's what's happening, though, and I don't mean to jump and interrupt you on this. I want to throw this at you and see what you think of this. These indictments are happening, yes, timed so Trump cannot campaign next year, but also these associates are being indicted, which they don't have to be. The idea is to go get Trump. So they want to deplete resources of Trump's allies. They don't want blacks for Trump is being sought out too.
They don't want anybody to work for Trump. I mean, they came after me in the Mueller investigation. They offered me a plea deal. They were going to indict me, saying I lied, that I didn't have a contact with Julian Assange. I did not have a contact with Julian Assange. I figured out on my own. I didn't need a contact what he was going to publish in the emails he had not yet released. And I refused to take their plea deal. I said, you want to put me in prison? Get me in front of one of these corrupt judges in Washington in a trial that we'll all be convicted. Put me in prison the rest of my life. Go ahead and do it. I'm not going to stand before God and lie to keep my sorry behind out of jail. Put me in jail if you want to for the rest of my life, and I'll go. I am not going to lie to God.
Well, you called their bluff, I guess.
Well, and they didn't indict me. Now, Donald Trump is going to, he'll do the same thing. He's out there saying it's election interference. He's right. But we've got to support him. We've got to make it clear. And that mugshot, I think, says it all. Donald Trump is coming after these people, and we've got to make sure that the lawfare system doesn't use neo-Marxist principles and cultural Maoism. Forget this woke. I mean, judge it by the fruit of the tree. If you want to look at what woke is, your boys are going to be wearing dresses. The girls are going to be confused as to who they are, which is nonsense. Everything's racism. The teachers are not teaching math. They're not teaching science. They're not teaching anything except racism and gender. We don't need this. This is destruction. This is malware of the mind and the soul. This is evil because it will ultimately destroy America. And it's the same with the economy. The Federal Reserve, with Powell, if you listen to him closely this week, said more interest rate raises are coming. They are going to destroy the economy because they can't stop printing money. And we are going to have continued inflation they can't control. Now, interest rates on 30-year fixed mortgages just went about to 8%, going to kill the stock market. They're going to kill the housing market. In September, the stock market is going to probably crash. Please go onto our site. This book I've written on, which you've got to read if you want to be prepared. It's free. Call that 800 number. You can get it. The coming global crash. Understand what's happening. Don't just be a victim. And the coming gold rush. It's free. There's an 800 number. Call. I'd word it with Dean Heskin, who heads Swiss America. They'll send you a free copy of the book. So I'm imploring you to read this book, to know what's going on. Okay, I want to go to the next story, Chris, which is the story here about Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson's in Hungary, and he's giving some very powerful speeches. And I want to play 2 minutes of a speech he's given talking about, in America, the people telling the truth are punished. And I can attest to that. They tried to put me in prison for saying the Russian collusion was a hoax. Didn't happen. Russia didn't steal the emails from Hillary Clinton. Hillary Clinton invented it. Hillary Clinton's the criminal. And for saying that, they wanted to put me in prison because I wouldn't go along with their lies. Let's play the 2 minutes.
Getting knowledge is one part, and being well informed is the other part. So we have this overwhelming noise online. What would you recommend for young people, how they can become and remain well informed in this online news? Okay, following Tucker Carlson, but what are the other platforms?
No. I would
ways of
look. If start with the knowledge that you're being lied to at scale, not just one person, but a collection of people, a network of people acting in concert, knowingly or not, with one another in order to tell you things that are not true, and not just not true, the opposite of the truth. And that there are reasons this is happening, but it is happening. That's the thing to know. So, I mean, I hate to say this because it's very dark and cynical, but it's also true. I assess people's honesty by how the so-called mainstream, which is not mainstream in any sense, but the predominant voices regard them. So if somebody in power says, well, you're not allowed to think that, my first question is, well, why? Probably because it's true, actually. Probably because it's true. Very few people are punished for lying. I can't remember the last time I saw a public figure in the United States punished for lying. They're caught all the time. No one is ever punished. Instead, people are punished for telling the truth. Maybe not the whole truth, maybe a variation of the truth, maybe just something that points toward the truth. But it's the truth that is illegal. And so I assess it in reverse. If the people I don't trust, if the Atlantic magazine is screaming that you must go to jail or be silenced, I want to know what you're saying. Because I bet it's a little closer to the truth than what the Atlantic magazine is telling me. In fact, I'd bet my house on it.
This is a fundamental theme in politics, and I address it in this new book. I want to go to Thucydides, who was a Greek writer. He wrote about the Peloponnesian War, and involves language perversion. He says Thucydides wrote, the ordinary acceptation of words and their relationship to things was changed as men thought fit. Reckless audacity came to be regarded as courageous loyalty to party. Prudent hesitation as specious cowardice. Moderation as a cloak for unmanly weakness, and to be clever at everything was to do naught in anything. Frantic impulsiveness was accounted a true man's part, but caution and deliberation is specious pretext for shirking. What he's saying is when language gets perverted, the evil gets called good. And when that happens, the society deteriorates. They change the meaning of words. And that's what the left has done. Disinformation is truth. Misinformation is truth. In other words, if you say, I think the election, why can't we investigate if the election of 2020 was stolen, which is the issue now Donald Trump's going to put before the court, and this Marxist judge will probably not allow it to be heard. Because the left is not being truthful. They're lying, and they don't want to be exposed. That's why they suppress free speech. A society that suppresses free speech is doomed to die. Now, that's what Thucydides did, and Thucydides proved that Athens lost in part because of the insanity that they engaged in with all these dynamics of losing perspective of the truth or values related to the truth. So, in June 2020, I write, again, this book is coming out. It's up on Amazon right now. You can get it in advance copy, and it'll be out in October. In the 2020 presidential cycle, the FBI in Washington, D.C. took a knee and raised their fist to demonstrate their solidarity with Black Lives Matter Maoist revolutionaries marching through the streets of the Capitol. These are Maoists. They're communists. The FBI stood by and watched while the Black Lives Matter occupied a street across from the White House, renaming the street Black Lives Matter Plaza, and proceeded to vandalize one of the most sacred Christian churches in America, St. John's Church on Lafayette Square. Since James Madison, every sitting U.S. president has attended services since that church opened in 1816. Then in Portland, Oregon, the FBI refused to investigate Antifa urban terrorists who looted, burned, and rioted night after night in the city's downtown streets. This is insanity. Our Justice Department is not for justice, it's for injustice. And if that's the case, we are a doomed people. It's time to reclaim America and stand and support Donald Trump. Okay, let's go to the next story here that I want to cover. And these are extremely important stories today because they form a theme here, which I'm trying to get people to understand in detail. Okay, so the next story here is that essentially electric vehicles are dead ducks. What's happening is that despite having pushed this agenda, dealers are saying, we don't want any more electric vehicles on our lot. We can't sell them. Nobody wants them. So the early adopters, these people who were the radical nutcases who thought an electrical vehicle was going to save the planet, it's still generating a lot of hydrocarbon fuels, which, by the way, do not cause global warming. They don't. And if you want to get, you've got to, I'm imploring you to read, because if you don't take the time to understand the science, you're going to be fooled by this nonsense. So electric vehicles don't really work. They use rare minerals, which have to be mined. We're mining them in third world countries, including Africa. We're destroying Africa and raping Africa again. And, using slave labor and all the rest of it. And China's controlling the market. And hydrocarbon fuels are involved in getting the rare earth minerals. Then we have to produce the electricity. Well, electricity isn't wind and solar. And it's increasing evidence that these wind turbines put out in the ocean are killing whales. We know that they already kill birds, these wind turbines. And we have covered that the waste, these vast, wastelands of turbine blades, when these machines break down, are creating an environmental catastrophe. The energy has to be produced. The vehicles, you can't, if you go out in the road, you're taking a risk if you're going 300 or 500 miles that you're going to be able to find a charging station. So as soon as you start driving, your time to find a charge is ticking. And you begin to panic. What happens if I can't find a charging station? Well, then you're dead duck. You're sitting there, you can't move the thing. You run out of electricity, it's done. At least with a gasoline car, you can roll it to the side. With a gasoline car, you can find a gas station. You can pump it in a very short period of time, fill it with gasoline, and keep going. Electric vehicle, you can't count on that. The batteries burn. Put them in your garage, they could burn down your house. These are a failed product that is an ideologically driven product. So now you got all these Ford and all the GM, they put millions of dollars into produce. They said, well, okay, if Biden's going to say by 2030 we have to have 85% of these cars be electric in order to meet the EPA's emission standards, we better convert our factories to be able to produce electric vehicles. No one wants them. They cost a lot of money. They're very difficult to maintain. They're difficult to operate. You know, we want to run around the city in a little electric vehicle. You want to run around the golf course in a golf cart. Sure, that electric works there. But you want to do the entire society with the massive nature of the United States on electric vehicles. We don't have the infrastructure for it. And spending billions on dollars to create that infrastructure, now they're saying, well, we've got to shut down the grid. The grid is not reliable any longer. Well, we're getting through this summer, but let's see how we get through the winter. And the global this crisis, the hysteria about climate. I read all these articles, hottest summer ever. That's no longer global warming, it's global boiling. Propaganda, lies. If the mainstream media is telling it to you, if this is the theme, and what Tucker is saying, it's scale. So in other words, every channel you turn on is saying the same thing. Global boiling. Turn on MSC, global boiling. CNN, global boiling. White House, global boiling. That's a narrative. They planted the narrative, and they're going to drum it into your mind until you believe it, because you don't understand the science. Understand the science, you'll know that this is nonsense. Carbon dioxide is a minor greenhouse gas effect. Water vapor is 70% of all greenhouse gases on Earth, not carbon dioxide. We have actually less carbon dioxide in the atmosphere today, parts per million, than we did 600 million years ago. They're not going to tell you that. They're going to lie to you because they figure you don't know the science. So now dealers are saying with these electric vehicles, we don't want them. We can't sell them. They're dead ducks. The inventories are increasing to the point where the inventories are way above what they're ever going to sell. So, we had this big production curve for a while because the early adopters, all the left, let's get an electric vehicle. They accelerate fast and they really operate neat. And they got all this electronic equipment in here. It's like running a computer. Tesla's more like, of course, you're looking at the computer. You're not looking at the road. That's okay. They're going to make it so the car drives itself. Wake up, people. This is an architected reality. We're being architected into slavery. And I'm pleased to see that finally let's mask up again. We've got another round of it, COVID. Well, we've got another round being produced of vaccines. And you're not allowed to question whether the vaccines are safe or not. These were not approved through the normal testing that the National Institutes of Health require. CDC did not go through those. They said, oh, we got a pandemic. We'll just emergency declare that vaccines are okay. Well, they weren't tested. We don't know the side effects. And millions of people, we get all these artists and comics and all the rest, get vaccinated. It's patriotic, get vaccinated and have a green pass. These are architected into totalitarianism, controlled by the government, and their lies. We're going to be doing much more on this. We'll be revamping the Truth Central, and we're going to be much more active in trying to expose these lies. I decided not to be retired when I saw where the society was going. As long as I'm alive, I'm going to try to do my best to contribute in a small way to fighting this disinformation, which is ungodly and designed to destroy the freedoms our founding fathers and generations of America have fought and died to protect. Chris, any final comments?
On these electric vehicles, I come from New York. People seem to think New York is just New York City and maybe Albany and a couple other things going on here and there. Maybe some commuter towns in Westchester County. The fact is, we have we're the second largest, or at least we are, I believe, still the second largest dairy producer in this country. The reason why I bring this up is because imagine trying to transport cattle and transport other livestock, transport dairy, transport a lot of other supplies in an electric truck, uphill through the Adirondack Mountains and, of course, the Catskills. There's no way it's going to happen. And try that in the winter. You need power. You need the ability, even if you had the power with the electric vehicles, the ability to fill these things up. We're in an area, I don't know if you've been up 17. It's called the Quickway. It goes from New York through Fredonia to into Pennsylvania, way into Western New York. It's hours upon hours, but there's a stretch through the Mohawk territory that you cannot find a regular gas station for a long time. Imagine what happens. Imagine how much more rare right now and probably in the future in upstate New York and other areas like it, where a charging station may or may not be.
Yeah, and when you get to a charging station, they may not work.
Right. And look at the winter. You have terrible winters up in upstate New York. One can't transport things, but the government's going to tell you, well, then just don't do it. You're going to have to wait. Have some patience. Wait 2 or 3 months. Slow the supply chain. There are more ripple effects to this than one might think.
Well, the electric vehicles don't work in the hot or the cold. Their efficiency drops dramatically. The left knows this. This is intentionally done to destroy capitalism. They want. I'm going to write an article for American Thinker saying, is the goal of the Biden administration to kill Americans? We have depopulation as a officially stated national security policy of the United States. I don't know if Biden's following that policy. Okay, so we're going to ramp up the heat here. We're going to be active here to try to resist this. We're going into a presidential election. We need an impeachment now. This is Dr. Jerome Corsi. Chris, thank you. Any final comments?
Impeachment now brings in President Harris, but hey, you know what? Maybe that'll really expose things.
Well, I think the Democratic Party is going to be hated enough that even Michelle won't win.
That's a good point.
And then we can talk about Obama's birth certificate again, and we can talk about all the issues about Obama being a communist. We can ask questions about this chef who died, why Obama was having bandaged hands on the golf course the next day. A lot of questions here we can ask, and they won't be popular in Washington that we do ask them, but if they want to imprison us for telling the truth and asking questions and exercising free speech, then so be it. Dr. Jerome Corsi, this is the Truth Central. In the end, God always wins. And remember, it's probably not a good idea to play this game for Satan. It's probably not a good end game strategy. God created this place. God rules. There are consequences to behavior. There are consequences to lying. There are consequences to evil. Join me in the intent, the biblical intent of 2 Chronicles 7:14. We all need, please join me getting on my knees and saying to God, forgive us for allowing God to be taken out of our country, out of our schools, out of our public square, for killing so many babies in the womb. These are actions that violate God's law, and we're done with them. The people who advance these, we're going to expose as liars, we're going to expose as evil. We do not need Satan replacing God at Harvard. Dr. Jerome Corsi, this is Tuesday, August 29th, 2023, thetruthcentral.com. Please like us. Please share this program. We'll be back tomorrow. God bless.